at Greenbrier Lake in the Family Lodge. It's January, middle of January, and it's already 50 degrees out today. Very strange weather for January. And what I thought I'd do is something I've been wanting to film for a while, and that is a little more history on the property, basically on the improvements we've made. And I say we, things that I've done over the years, just to get a little perspective of what's been done and when it might have to be redone. Beautiful day, lots of sunshine, even though it's still low in the sky. Diamonds on the lake. A few of the projects that are no longer here is right in this area next to the temporary yard barn is where we used to have the grill. It was made out of concrete block and then bricked on the outside of it. I'm kind of glad that's gone because the brick didn't look very good, and I did about half of it. I think what my dad did looked pretty good. What I did looked really poor from my point of view now. But I'll take a look here and go over a few of the things that we've done over the years. Until we built the new lodge, there used to be a second ditch that came in underneath the road and came down along where the driveway is. And flowed into this ditch, made a Y. We used to call this the island. I still call it the island because it had the ditch on both sides. But before that, back here on the island, this is where my dad had dug outhouses. Usually what he did was dug down, put a 55-gallon drum down in the ground, and then had a structure built over it with cross arms from public service, of course. I think he had two in the time that we had it until the late 70s. And once they filled up and started collapsing in, he would build a new one. I believe he had the last one across the ditch here in the front. There used to be a big tree right there. So it was somewhere in here around where the light pole is now. And I remember that one because it felt like it was going to fly away. It was so filled with carpenter bees that when you got in it, you could actually hear the whole thing buzz. So one of the first major things that I built that's still here is the new outhouse. I know the third and fourth generation are wondering why we still keep it. Well, it's January and it is 50, but the water can't be turned on because we don't want the pipes to freeze. So if you come down here this time of year until we get the water back on, probably in late April, early May, then this is your only option. I built this, the original one, in 1979. I came down here, spent about 3 days, and dug it about 6 feet deep. And they basically made a holding tank. Brother-in-law John and friend of his, Everett, saw this base sitting out behind an old farmhouse between here and Terre Haute, and stopped, and the lady was willing to give it to him. It's still in really good shape for something that's probably close to 100 years old. So with this base, I got well tile, and I dug a hole, lined it in well tile. At the bottom, I put a concrete base at the bottom, and with the well tile all the way up, we can have this pumped every year when we pump the septic tank. For that reason, it's been here since 1979, so that's 21. It's 43 years we've had this outhouse here. And it is actually, even though the younger generation don't like it, it's better than most of the outhouses you find out in the woods at the state parks. I rebuilt it in 3 years ago, I think it was. I rebuilt it. The outside was starting to rot. The roof was starting to go bad. So I made it out of this composite wood that is for outdoor use. I put that on my yard barn in my home up in Avon, and that was back in the early 90s, so it's over 35 years old up there, and you can't tell the difference with it. So I used most of the 2x4s that were originally here. Made it a little more square than what the old one was. Put in the well tile, that was put in originally, so put on a new roof, put on new shingles, put in the electrical, which we had electricity running here, but I put it in, instead of a pole switch, we actually have a switch and a outlet now, in case you want to charge your phone while you're doing your business. But we used to have electricity running underground to this light pole. It got torn out when we took out some trees and did some other work. So I reran wire from the electrical box over here, and all it is an outdoor wire coming into here, but going out of the box and into the outhouse. It's just a piece of outdoor extension cord. Since it's made for outdoor, it's shielded and all. And it was the cheapest way to do it, and nice and flexible. So that I did back about 3-4 years ago. Reran electrical wire to the pole here. And something I'll mention, when brother-in-law John and my sister's Pat, they put in a pad where the sleeper cabins sit now. They put in a pad and they put in this electrical outlet, and they bought an RV when they retired, and during the summer they would just park the RV here and live here during the summer, and they had the electrical done there. It came out of the old cabin, had a line that came out of the old cabin, but it kept blowing the breaker, and they kept having a problem with the breaker blowing when they used too much power. So we got together in the late 1990s or early 2000s, and we had so many people coming to the family reunions in bringing RVs or pop-up trailers that we decided to put in this new electrical line to fire up, put connectors on here for RVs hookups, 30 amp hookups, and then ran a new line underneath to what Pat and John had put in, and put a bunch of power on it, so that we'd have plenty of power for people wanting to have a little more comfort when they came for the reunion. As you can see, there's plenty of connections. It is what provides power to Pat and John's sleeper and to my sister Ann and my sister Sarah's sleeper cabins. And as far as I know, we've never had a bit of problem with it. My next major project was replacing our old pier. We used to have an old pier made out of utility logs. There were 2 utility logs that went out into the lake. Show you the amount of erosion we had in this ditch, because this was one of the anchors for the utility log. Utility log sat just to the right here, and you can see how much lower this is than underneath the pier right now. So the water has, with the water rising with the bad outlet, it has caused all this erosion. I've started reversing a little bit, putting all this concrete and stone in here, trying to catch the silt and keep it from eroding so bad, and it's starting to do some work. Trying to get it to where we're about a foot outside that anchor. But family reunion, we tore down the old pier, and I came in here in 2002 and decided to make it a deck slash floating pier. Almost everything came from Menards. For one thing, they had 20-foot 2x12s, treated 2x12s, which they were the only one that had it. So I bought all the wood from the Menards in Terre Haute and had them deliver it here. From Menards, I was able to get the floats for the floating pier. I was also able to get galvanized pipe from Menards, and they had anchors that I was able to buy, put on the bottom of them, and then the ones out in the water, I actually took the flatboat and anchored it real well, and then took and started screwing those down into the lake bottom with pipe wrenches. So we've got 3 along the front, and then what used to be right at the shoreline is where I put the next 3, and see where the water has eroded back. Since the water's high, it erodes back to the where that used to be right at the front of the lakefront. And then behind that, I put in concrete piers, 3 across here, so there's 9 concrete piers underneath there. And then built this deck upon these piers. And then they had all the galvanized corners and floats for a floating pier, so I made this, I think it's a 10 by 10. The pier is, or the deck is 12 by 20. So the floating pier is 2 feet shorter. Built this step, but it's hard to see, but down in here there's actually 2 joints where the pier actually connects into the deck, and allows it to raise up and down on the front depending on the water level. When you came out here, it used to feel a little unsteady, would want to shake, so I took some galvanized corners and put on either side here some hinges, corner hinges, and put on either side, and it's made it real sturdy for the most part. 3 years ago, my sister, we did have a aluminum ladder out here, but it's fairly straight up and down, which makes it difficult after it's been in the water for a while with all the buildup on the steps. Makes it hard for us older folks to get up and down on it. So 3 years ago my sister bought this plastic set of stairs that goes out at an angle, and it has really worked well. So it's been a nice. This was 2002 that I built this. As I stated, showing you the outhouse, that the third and fourth generation weren't real big fans of the outhouse. So in order to get daughter-in-laws and sons and nephews and nieces to come out on a regular basis, in 2008 I built the what I call a camp bathroom, and all we did was we had a 1,000-gallon concrete tank, septic tank put in here. This is the lake end of it, and then it goes the length of the bathrooms just about here. And then for this distance, you can see these two pipes down here. We've got 2 runs of septic line that run through here. It's the big hooded type. So we got about 50 feet of line, and it's basically just for overflow. Every year we come back out here and have it we have it pumped before the family reunion. I originally built this in 2008 when the old cabin was still around. This pump was not here. What we had was on the old cabin, on the front porch, we had an old shallow water pump with a 5-gallon tank on top of it. No bladder or anything. And so what I did was I just ran a line, a water line, from the bathrooms over to the porch underneath the cabin, and went to the old pump and just put a valve there. We could turn it on and off. The only problem with that was, with such a small tank, 2 bathrooms, one on either side, originally meant to be men and women's. But with the tanks on either side, or with that small tank, that would run continuously. And at night, when people were trying to sleep, or if you tried to sleep on the porch, you would hear that pump turn on and off all night long. So I completed this in 2008. In 2012, when we started building the new lodge, I upgraded. I took the old pump off. Well, we had to take it off when we tore everything down to remove the old cabin. So when we started building the new cabin, I bought this 20-gallon tank and a better jet pump. Kevin came out here and helped me run a line. My son Kevin. We ran a line to the lake just to the left of that tree, and we put in a 1-inch line. When I built this, we've got all the waste going into the septic tank, but the gray water that comes out of the faucets, I put in a dry well. It was just a 50-gallon plastic tank that I put down there with a couple of little short arms coming off of it with perforated pipe, Surrounded it with gravel, and then it's got a top on it so we could drain it if we ever needed to. But it's been, what, 2008 to now? It's been 14 years and we've never had a problem with the gray water. Now on the bathrooms, I did put automatic faucets so that they would turn off. There's so many young kids out here. I was always worried that someone would leave the water on and we'd end up flooding the dry well. And turning the yard into a mess. Just checking. This is the first time I've been in here since I shut them down, but it's got an automatic where you push it, you just have nothing but cold water, but it shuts off after about 20 seconds. So that's where the gray water runs, is to that dry well there. Go down the old cabin because of the condition it was in. When we built this new lodge, but we decided on basically a shelter house with an enclosed kitchen. So some of the items that we put into it, I'll go through now. One thing we did, or I had them do, when they put in the concrete floor, we've got 2-inch pipe that runs out to the exterior to drain any water that comes in. We didn't have them put any gutters in. See all the trees around here? We'd be constantly having to clean the gutters out. If you don't get them cleaned out, then you're going to get ice in them, or you're going to have water overflowing, and you're going to end up with the fascia boards up here rotting out. So what we did was, while it was being built and it was down to the foundation, my son Nick and I came down here and we laid perforated 4-inch sleeved pipe all along the east, west, and south foundation. Let's form a French drain around it. The French drain, then any water that is in it flows down to the ditch down here, to this pipe, which you can see we've run over a few times with the lawnmower. So when this was brand new, I sodded the grass for just one width away from the wall to give us some place to walk, not in the mud, and then took river rock and put along the edge. So what happens now is when it rains, the water just falls off right off the roof and falls into the rock. It'll work its way down into the French drain and then out through the creek. And in the 10 years or whatever that we've had this place now, we haven't had one bit of problem. Another thing we did, there's 2 4-inch pipes that come out. One is down here in the corner, and that is for the water. And what I do, coming out of the pump room, you can see we've got 2 pipes. 1-inch black PVC that comes in from the lake, and then 3/4 inch this clear that goes back out, and that's what runs to the corner pipe back here at the corner of the kitchen And that provides the water system, or the water to the cabin. We also have a pipe with the electrical line that comes in from the fuse box, breaker box inside. It's a 60 amp circuit. Basically it's two 30 amp lines that come out. It comes out just behind the wall dividing the kitchen and the pavilion up here. So it comes out right about, probably about a foot to 2 feet behind that support there. Maybe you can see there's a crack here, and I wouldn't doubt that that's cracked where the pipe came out underneath it. And it runs back over here, goes under the water pipe, and then into the bathrooms to provide power for the bathrooms. That 4-inch PVC runs all the way across the kitchen into the utility room where we have the power circuit box. You can see that is one. It comes in on the other side of the kitchen, and I have a branch that comes off and comes in here so that I could run power into the pavilion. And what we did not want to do was have to run wires through the logs, cut out the logs to run electrical. So all the electrical is run on the outside, and this is the power for the outside. Well, this video's gotten long enough, so I'm going to end this here, and then I'll do another video on just the family lodge itself and the projects we've done inside of there. Till next time, take care of yourself. Everyone be safe.